I've got this Mercedes Benz A350 here, and it's got a very nasty rattle on cold startup. So let's take a look at this car and see what we can find, and let's get it fixed. This is the engine right here. It's a M276 engine, Mercedes Benz V6. This issue is very common on these engines. On this one, the V8s and also the M157s. So let me get it started up and see if it does it. I did start it about 30-40 minutes ago, so I don't know if it's going to do it. It usually does on a cold startup, but let me try it and see if you guys can hear it. You can definitely hear that. So you can definitely hear that it's very rattly in the beginning. That rattling noise on these engines usually comes from the chain slapping, and that's usually due to the tensioners. Mercedes has a service bulletin on these. There's two tensioners, one on this side, one on that side. They're supposed to tension the chain, and then there's a main one that's by the crank that also tensions the chain at the bottom. But these ones right here on cold startup, what happens, the oil drains out of it, and it takes a little bit to actually build that oil back up, and it results in that chain slap noise that you hear. Now, to remedy this, we have to take off this intake manifold. We have to take off the cover up here, the front covers. But before I do that, I want to clean this whole oily mess right here and over there, just so that we have a very clean surface to work on. But I'm gonna have to order these parts. I'm gonna show you guys a few common issues with these engines to prevent further issues. So if you're interested to watch that, follow along, and I'm gonna do my best to help you guys as much as possible. I am a former Mercedes Benz dealer technician, so these engines I'm very familiar with. What I wanna do before I start disassembling anything, I'm gonna spray some engine degreaser on here just to get a bunch of that gunk off. We're gonna rinse it out, and then after that we can actually go deep and actually disassemble the intake and the front covers to take a look at what we see. So we just want to let this thing soak in there for about 10 to 15 minutes, the directions say, and then we're going to rinse it with water, and we're going to let it dry out, so it shouldn't be an issue to the electronics or anything like that. While that degreaser is working its magic, I'm going to take off this intake manifold cover, and it's only got 2 bolts. These may look like Torx to you, but these are actually fake, so you just take this off just like that. And right here you're gonna find there's 2 T10s here, and there's 2 more in the back. You'll see a couple of holes, so you got to get to the ones in the back with an extension. So it's actually very easy to get to. I think I said T10, but what I meant was E10, so the inverted Torx. So E10, that's the size. We take these off. That's it. So they don't come out. You just leave them like that, and then we're just gonna prop up the intake manifold. And it's been about 10 minutes, so let's go ahead and clean up some of this grime that's on the front covers. That's good enough for now, because we're also going to be using brake clean to clean that up. Now let's go ahead and take this off here. This is the air filter box. We're going to use these types of pliers. I'm not sure exactly what they are called, but we're going to use these to take this clamp here off. Just like that. And let's use a pick to pry off the electrical connector right here. And we're going to use sort of like a pry bar to get this electrical connector off. And then we can get this out of the way. Just like so. And let's take off these hoses. Okay, connector here. At the bottom right here, there's another connector which goes to the throttle body. So we need to take that off as well. You push that out of the way. Now there's a few more connections that we have to take off. We got to take the engine control unit out as well. You can disconnect the battery if you would like. I would recommend you disconnect it. However, it is not necessary for this if you're just doing this type of repair. But if you're not comfortable, definitely disconnect the battery. As long as you don't attempt to start the car, you'll be fine. Another thing you want to pay attention to, make sure you have no oils over here. You'll see oil build up on the engine control unit. If you do, then that means one of your sensors, whether it's the oil pressure sensor or if it's these cam magnets right here or the cam position sensors, one of those is letting oil travel through the harness all the way up to the engine control unit. And you're going to say, well, how can that happen? It's because of the current that's flowing through the wires, the current that we don't see. That is pulling the oil with it, and it's bringing it all the way to the end point, which is usually the engine control unit. So if you do see that, take care of that right away, because that will cause a lot of issues. So that's one of the common issues with this engine, the 8-cylinder, and also the a few of the other ones of this generation. Let's get the engine control unit out of the way as well. We'll just put it over here. That should be fine. And then there's a couple of clips holding the wires in place. One other thing I forgot to mention, which you should do as part of the check, is the engine oil quality. So you want to check the oil. As you can see, this one can use replacing, however it's not completely dark. So you want to check the oil quality as well as the oil level, because any car that has variable valve timing is very important. You need good quality oil, good level on the oil, and more often than what Mercedes recommends service intervals. They recommend 10,000. I recommend every 5,000 for sure. This you just twist off, and then now we just have to take the rest of these connectors off in the front here. And this should move up. Just go slowly. We're gonna get this up. There's a few more connectors, but we're gonna get this out of the way first. There is this connector right here you want to take off, and there's also this one up top you want to take off. This will give you enough room for this to flex up and over. And then right over here, if you just support this with something, you put something between there to wedge this up. I usually use like a pry bar or something. That will give you enough room for you to take the front covers off. So I'm just going to use this can to put it between these two right there, and that will keep this elevated so that we can go ahead and work around here and get done what we need to get done. So now we're not that far off from getting ready to remove this. So we got to take off these connectors right here, this one here. These are the cam magnets. If you see that you're not able to pull these, use a pick or a pry bar, something you put in the back just to lift the tab up. It's definitely easier with two hands. So let me demonstrate it with two hands because it's definitely easier. So you pull this, you fit something between there, and then you pull this out the rest of the way, just like that. And you want to pay attention, make sure there's no oil on these, as well as these cam magnets up here. If you see oil, like you see with this one, that needs to be replaced. this cam magnet is letting oil go through it. So there's one. Usually I recommend doing all four when that's the case. Let me bring you closer so you can see this for yourself. Take a look at that. You see the oil that needs to be replaced. Because like I mentioned, if you don't replace these, the oil will go all the way to the engine control unit. And you can see right there, also has oil. And right here, also has oil. All four of them. And you want to pay attention to these as well, the cam magnets, because these can also have oil. But you get the point. These ones were dry. You want to take a look inside as well. These ones were dry, so that's good. Now we have this ground, which is a T30 that we got to take off. And you want to put this right back there so you don't forget where it went. And there's another ground on this side as well. You also want to take off this hose so you can move it out of the way. Be careful to not drop it. This will let you sort of move around a little bit easier. We'll just put it like that for now. And also take off this E10 right here. And that's to move this motor electronics bracket out of the way. You just bend it a little bit and that will give you plenty of room. Put the bolt back. Then you can either sort of hover this hose over it, or you can take it off and put a rag in there, whatever is easier for you. So now we're very close to actually taking the covers off. This wire can be moved out of the way, just like that. So this side is ready to come out. On this side, you want to take the oil filter cap off, and you want to take these off too. It's two E10s. Those are for when you're hoisting the engine up. Before I go any further, I got to get the okay from the owner of the vehicle. But we're very close to that. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this down with some brake clean. I'm going to spray some of the degreaser again, clean this up, and we'll be ready to take it off as long as we get the okay. So we're killing two birds in one stone because we're resealing the covers, and also we should be fixing the rattle as well on startup. All right, so we're gonna go ahead with the disassembly. I got the parts to come in. So right now it's pretty easy. We're gonna start with the passenger side. This is actually bank 1 on Mercedes. If you pay attention, one of the banks is a little bit more pushed forward than the other. That's where bank 1 is. I don't know if that's true for all engines. I know it's true for a lot of engines, however. So let's go ahead. These are E10s. Take those off. These are one-time use bolts. These bolts right here are one-time use. However, I am going to be reusing them. Customer is a family member, so we're going to be okay. I'm just going to put some blue Loctite on these, and they can be reused. But Mercedes says that these should be thrown away after the first use. The reason I say these can be reused is because these are not stretch bolts. They don't have a torque angle. They're only torqued irregularly. So, and I'm going to show you what the torque is going to be later in the video. And then now with the little pry bar, we can go ahead and pry this off. There's these guide pins there. One of them is stuck here. You can just use some pliers to get these guide pins off. They come off pretty easy because you want to clean the surface really well. Okay, so right over here, that's our chain tensioner. These are the cam adjusters. So one way to check if these are bad is to spin the engine and see if the outside spins when the inside does not spin. That's indication that it's skipping inside, and that could rattle until it builds up pressure. So We're gonna go ahead and do that, but we already have the parts for this tensioner here. This tensioner is very, very likely weak. And then there's a check valve inside as well. But let's go ahead and spin the engine and see if we notice any of these that spin on the outside, but not the inside. And the crank bolt is a 27 millimeters. So you just take that, put that there, and you just start spinning. And pay attention. So we heard that click. That's that rattle that you hear at startup. Now, I don't know if that's... I'm not seeing this move separately. Another good indication is going to be this will shoot out oil, which this is not doing. So let me pay attention to this tensioner down here. So it sounds like the passenger side skips. So before we do anything else, I'm gonna take this passenger side cover off and take a look at that. The process is pretty straightforward for this as well. The only difference is we gotta take the oil cap off and put rags underneath there to catch the oil. Did I say to catch the oil? I meant to catch the debris so nothing falls in there. So let's take this off. STP filter, definitely don't recommend on these engines. I'm going to put this piece of microfiber towel in here, and that's going to ensure nothing falls inside the oil and does damage. Okay. So now let's spin the engine again and pay attention to the noise that we had. And we want to look at these right here. Okay, this is our issue right here. Pay attention to that. And watch how it's gonna pop. So right now it's spinning together. Yep, heard that? That snapping action right there, that will cause the rattle on startup. Because you got to think, right now I'm spinning the engine a little bit. When this thing is on the car, this thing is spinning much, much faster when the engine is cranking. So because of that, I got to call the customer, let him know. It is a family member, but it's a lot of work. To get there, you got to take the cover off, and you know, it is quite a bit of work. I was really hoping it is just these tensioners, because these can create very similar noise. A Mercedes actually has a bulletin for these, the left and the right. However, that does not seem to be the case for this specific engine, this specific vehicle, and there's no point of me replacing these at this time It's a good idea to replace the tensioners anyways when you do the cam adjusters. However, due to the budget and all of that, we're gonna have to see, because that's gonna add quite a bit more. Those aren't cheap. If I do end up doing this job, I'm gonna obviously show you guys. It might be another video. If we don't do this job, then well, I guess that's it. At least you know how to check if you have this rattle, what your issue is. If we don't see any of that, if we don't see any skipping, then that means that our issue is likely the tensioners. In this case, we definitely see it slipping, so there's no point of putting just the tensioners, because the noise will still be there because that thing is leaking. So thank you guys for following along, and I'll see you on the next one.